Were you? Just kidding. All right. Always a good day. It's going to take a second for everything to flow through. It looks like we are live on Hot Dave's channel. We are live on my channel. We're live on Twitch. We're live on X. Dave, how are you doing? Are you excited for this evening?
I am excited. Big number 60. It's Electron's growing up so fast, you know?
It is, man. I can't believe it. I was like, when did I get involved first? My first few launches, it was either right before 20 or right in the mid 20s, somewhere around there. So to believe that I already have 40 launches under my belt, watching as an investor, as well as somebody that's excited about space, it's excited to kind of see the continuation of it. And the second launch of the year, that's exciting. And yeah. I'm curious to see what else we have in store. It's going to be a big year. HASTE is going to grow up. Neutron's going to grow up. There's going to be a lot of cool things that end up coming out throughout the year. So,
yeah, I feel like they often, when it's like a, kind of a more special launch, whether it's 50 or 40 or whatever, they'll give a little bit of extra coverage, like maybe some new videos or animations or something like that with the launch coverage. So we'll get to see what happens there. Obviously, Black Sky, the new Gen 3 satellites, pretty exciting for them. And I think it's it's very fitting that it's Black Sky who we're launching for, because they're pretty much, I think, the most frequent customer Electron has at this point.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's been a few others, and it's been a while since Black Sky launched. If I remember, it's been probably 6 months or maybe even more, because they've been getting ready for the Gen 3, right? So correct me if I'm wrong there. I don't remember the last time really it was, but they definitely had quite an allotment of launches. I think they just put something on Twitter about it too.
You might be right. Yeah, I tend to lose track on the specific companies when they launch. It's getting to be too many to track them all on. Exactly. But that's a good sign, you know?
It is, yeah. So actually, this is probably good to share. So far, the launches to date. So thanks to X for keeping us honest. So the first launch was in, sorry if it's a little bit hard to read, everybody. Maybe switch this over really quick. Let me just double check.
That looks a little better now.
So starting in June 2019, it looks like. So Make It Rain, Look Ma No Hands, 2019, August. They go up so fast. That was 2021. I remember that one. Running Out of Toes, that was May 2021. November 2021, Love at First Insight, A Data with Destiny, December 2021. Without Mission a Heartbeat. Without Mission a Beat. Keep messing up.
Okay.
April 22. The Beat Goes On, March 23. And today. So yeah, it has been almost a year, about 11 months. Okay, so I wasn't crazy. Normally I am. So
one of these days they're gonna run out of the funny names.
That's what I always wonder. Like, at what point is it so like old hat at that point where you're just like, you just use the normal names, like launch 50 or launch 60.
Yeah, I hope they keep that going for as long as possible. It's fun.
I like it. I think it's it adds a little bit of character to it and keeps things exciting.
Just to interject here, I see we have a big gifted super chat from Fool's Gold, and if US does beat Canada on Thursday, then yes, I will be quite upset. But I think you guys, you got your work cut out for you. We have Makar back, and I think we have a really strong team. So you got us once, but it's going to be a good game. So good luck to you as well.
Much appreciated, my man. Continued success over there in the Middle East. Looking forward to all the pictures that you send over. So we got another one.
Oh, wow. And we have one from Jacob as well, and Fool's Gold, the legend, on my channel as well, to both of us. So yeah, great guy. I actually interviewed him recently. Interesting story. Did extremely well for himself. Did you have a chance to see that, Matt?
I saw somebody else interview. I didn't see that you interviewed him, so I'll have to look at your channel and find that one. That was interesting. But I've talked to Zach quite a bit, off and on the channel. So yeah, he's a good person to keep in touch with, and I want to meet up with him at some point whenever he's done his world tour, as I like to think of it as. But yeah, he's a good person. He's inspiring me. You know, tells me to stop being such a what's a more PC way to put this? Have more conviction in myself, I guess is the right way to probably put it.
One thing I did take away from my conversation with him is that, like, I think when I have done my research and I'm really confident, it's okay to go big on an investment and it can work out. I've seen, I mean, I was as confident as anyone in Rocket Lab, but I was always taught, be safe, be conservative, diversify, which I did. So, well, Rocket Lab was my biggest holding, or is now my biggest holding. Could have done better on it. So I always feel that, darn, I missed out a little bit, but not complaining at all because, did very well on it and will continue to, I'm sure.
Yeah, I've had some things in the past where it didn't go my way, and so that always
that's
kind
the
of
other side.
stings. But it didn't. I guess one thing positively thinking about what you just stated is like, I took a calculated risk. I didn't invest more than I was willing to lose. I did lose probably like 95% of it. It was like a fundamental miscalculation on my part. And I was still kind of young in my investment career.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I was just like, you know what? I was like, if it goes to zero, that's fine because I know what the quantified amount that I was willing to lose was, and so I was okay with it. I mean, not okay with it, but you know what I mean. Like, it didn't bankrupt me, and it's a good reminder to show you, like, you will survive, right? As long as you're taking calculated steps, even if you're getting a little bit, I guess, concentrated rather than over diversifying, if that makes sense. As long as you're making sure that it's not something that'll kill you or take you down, then you'll survive and you'll live to fight another day. But the thing that I learned about Rocket Lab, which I did better than Palantir, was continuously adding. So even at $8, $10, even though my cost basis at one point was like $5, I've never stopped adding. In fact, I added, it was either yesterday. No, I guess it wasn't yesterday because the market was closed. It was today then. I rolled some covered calls on some other stocks and had a profit basically that I made from that. And so it was just a couple $100, but even still, it's like a couple $100 every couple weeks. It'll continue to add up and be thousands of shares. And that's really what my story with Rocket Lab has been. So.
Yeah. I haven't bought in a while for a variety of reasons. I think one reason is just psychologically, I have trouble buying when I know I bought it so much cheaper a while ago, but that doesn't, take away from the fact that obviously shares could be worth more in the future. And I've had it before with other stocks where, I look at it and I'm like, I don't want to buy now. It used to be cheaper. And then you go back, like fast forward a few years and you're like, oh, I should have bought at that point because it's still, had a big run from there. Like NVIDIA pops up as a name where, it's not, the opportunity is not over sometimes when you think it's over.
Yeah. I mean, it all just really depends on people's risk tolerance, right? And you might be sitting there. I mean, a lot of people don't recognize this. So over the trailing 12 months, I was actually pretty funny. I want to state this for the record. I had somebody say like, man, something really needs to happen with Rocket Lab. And I was just like, okay. I was like, don't get too greedy here. I mean, you look at the last 12 months, you're up 470 odd %. And this person's like, it's really been dipping since the beginning of January. And I was like, dipping. I was like, let me check this. And I was like, I was like, did we really dip that much?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't think we've dipped that much. And he was like, yeah, January 2025 to now, we've definitely dipped. And so I pulled it up and let me pull it up on the screen. I was just like, okay, up 10% is a dip. But anyway, that's a different story for a different day. I just think it's pretty funny. I like screenshot this particular graphic and I was like, okay, I circled like the last 12th of it, obviously. And I was just like, why is the stock going down? And I was just like, it's pretty funny to hear some people, but patience, man. You're literally putting rockets and satellites into space. It takes time.
And Laura, I think we will have a launch, although they seem to be a little bit slow getting going on their stream. Oh yeah, 2 minutes away. Okay. So yeah, as far as we had a couple New Zealanders in the chat, someone said the weather seemed good there, so I'm hopeful it will get off. But yeah, I think the comment you made about, the dip goes to show that probably wasn't an investor who held at like minus 30% in the threes and fours for multiple years because that was a dip. But
no, I got them perfectly timed. It was one of my old bosses, and by the way, guys, I know the sound is off at the moment. It's because I think the intro song is proprietary and royalty, so I just don't want to get demonetized there. But yeah, I think I got him in perfectly. I think he started accumulating shares in like the high threes, low fours, and so I don't think he ever saw the panic when it went from like 15 post SPAC to 20 at the one point, then all the way back down. I mean, I went through that whole ride, and I was like, stock's not any worse than it was. I was like, in fact, they've launched more and gotten better. So I don't understand why the stock is down at $3. It just didn't make sense to me at that point. And $2 billion market cap, it was a no-brainer. It was like, if anything's going to make it in space and it has a $2 billion valuation, it's going to be Rocket Lab.
Yeah, I know. Obviously, I am always talking about wishing I can roll back the clock and buy more, even though I bought a lot of shares. But you have to also keep in mind, like, overall markets were down a lot then. And obviously, I didn't have a ton of free cash. So if I was buying, I would have to sell other stuff. And then it's like you've got to sell stuff that you're at a big loss at that you think should be worth more as well. So it's not as, easy to go all in on one company in situations like that as you may think.
Curtis, I don't know if I called you out or not, man. Thank you once again for the 5 gifted members. Those always come in handy, and believe it or not, it's actually becoming a pretty substantial amount of the revenue. I don't go live as much as I wish these days. 9 to 5 is really keeping up with me, and then trying to do a little bit more on the Patreon side of things. But hopefully, the members are enjoying the increased content. I used to do nothing for the members, but now I'm starting to enjoy it a lot. I take a lot of pride into it. So if you're not getting as much as you want, message me, because I might be putting it on one avenue and not the other. I try to keep up with Patreon and YouTube posts at the same time, but sometimes they fall through. But I'm happy you're here, Dave. I don't think you and I have ever done a solo stream, not a solo stream, but a stream just me and you. So
yeah, we did do I had you on the channel for a video, but I think that was kind of like pre-recorded. So I don't think it was ever just me and you live. So yeah, kind of cool.
Yeah, very cool. How's it been? How's like moving into the new house and everything like that? Everything getting settled? Are you okay sharing that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a pretty long closing period, so I don't actually get possession for like another 2 months or so. Like about mid-April is when we get possession. So just trying to get my ducks in a row, get everything ready. I'm hoping to, kind of a long story with my current place that I went into in a video where I renovated it and stuff, and planning to keep it and actually rent it out as a rental property. So figuring out what I'm going to do there, how I'm going to rent it out. Originally, I was thinking of Airbnb-ing it, but honestly, the regulations here are so difficult to deal with that I think I'm just going to try and find a good long-term tenant that I don't have to have a ton of maintenance. So
for sure, and I think you have a decent amount of equity in there as well, so should be okay to get some long-term. All right, we'll keep it a little bit quiet. See if we can avoid the demonetization. I don't know if it's this part or if it's. I know for certain when they do the satellite view.
Yeah.
When I forget, it's Everyday Astronaut. That sort of music. That's definitely. That's definitely.
And I think some of the intro music from the loading screen before. So.
Yeah. So we'll keep it on and off. But excited for 60. Did you see? I'm not sure if you were keeping up with the Twitter chat today. It looked like, just based off it might have been how the sun was reflecting, that it looks more, Electron looks a little bit more gray than black today. And I wasn't sure if it was just the direct impact of the sun or what have you.
The complex one is our 60th Electron rocket.
Looks pretty black there, at least.
Yeah, it looks really black.
For Black Sky.
Looks pretty normal.
It's a beautiful afternoon to launch with the countdown to liftoff scheduled for 12:17 local time or 23:17 UTC. My name is Sam Peters, and with me is Hannah Jury from our Electron project engineering team. We'll be taking you through today's mission to space, set to launch in just over 16 minutes from now.
Thank you, Sam. It certainly is a stellar afternoon to go to space. Today's mission for Black Sky is headed to a 470-kilometer circular low Earth orbit with Gen 3. Gen 3 is the first of a new series of Black Sky spacecraft that will join their constellation of Earth imaging satellites already on orbit. We started launching for Black Sky all the way back in 2019 when Electron launches were still in their single digits. Our mission today is called Fasten Your Space Belts, and it's the first of multiple dedicated missions on Electron that are lined up for Black Sky's constellation. Constellation building requires flexibility and control over how, when, and where your satellites are deployed, and that's a service we're glad to be providing for our customer today. For more about their mission, here's a video from Black Sky.
In today's dynamic world, change is constant. National security situations can turn critical in an instant. Decisions can't wait. Minutes matter. Since 2014, Black Sky has delivered the power of foresight, the superpower needed to stay one step ahead of change. But the game is changing, and so is Black Sky. As we enter a new era in space-based intelligence, meet Gen 3, Black Sky's first very high-resolution satellite. Built on proven processes and agile small-sat development. Gen 3's enhanced image quality allows you to classify vehicles, aircraft, and vessels in greater detail. Shortwave infrared imaging breaks through smoke and haze. Targets are revisited every hour, and accelerated communications enable last-minute tasking for the highest priority missions. When you're up against rapidly changing situations on land, sea, or in the air, you need the intelligence that helps you act not just fast, but first. The next generation of space-based intelligence starts here. So fasten your space belts. Welcome to the era of Gen 3.
Very cool. Dave, do you own any, you own Black Sky, don't you? A little bit?
It will be our 9th launch overall for Black Sky, making us the most prolific launch provider for their constellation to date. Black Sky is one of our earliest and longest standing mission partners, and it's great to be back on the pad with them once again to advance and expand their constellation.
Now, if you've seen enough Electron launches before, you might have noticed that the nose cone for today's mission is looking a little bit longer than it usually does. That's because we're flying an extended fairing today, which better accommodates the dimensions of Black Sky's new Gen 3 satellite. Customized fairings are a simple way that we can tailor Electron launches to meet a wide range of mission requirements. Now, each sit atop the same launch vehicle with a common interface to the fairing, which reduces integration time and cost.
All of this to say that the beauty of our launch vehicle is that with a common launch platform, we're able to support multiple mission profiles, whether you're flying in orbit or below it.
Now we are at T-minus 13 minutes in the countdown. Let's get an update from the mission control team as they run the go, no-go poll for today's launch. Our operators in mission control will report in on Electron's different systems and confirm with a go or no-go if everything's looking good for launch. This ranges from the payload status and the rocket's environmental conditions to its propellant tank levels and whether the skies will remain clear at liftoff.
That's right. And from range control in Mahia, our operators there will report on the range's readiness and Launch Complex 1's ground systems to confirm the pad is ready for liftoff. All operators report up to the launch director in charge of operations. And today, in mission control, our launch director is Michael Pearson. Let's tune in now to the poll as that status update gets underway.
Quick shout out to Adam. Thank you for the 5 gifted, my bro. Much appreciated.
Adam's a legend.
Hey, keep asking good questions.
By the way, did you see Black Sky stock is up pretty big today?
To all stations.
Was it? Maybe it's because of the
proceeding
launch.
with the go no go sequence.
It's been on a run.
Stage.
Stages go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
Yeah, big.
GNC is go.
VCon.
VCon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
MM is go.
And LD sub.
LD sub is go.
Okay, all stations, that concludes the go, no, go sequence. We are T-minus 11 minutes, 15 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count auto sequence at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
Yeah, stock's moving up so much. It was up like 16%, 11% during hours.
The countdown clock is
after.
continuing, and we are go for liftoff of our 60th Electron mission. We're at T-minus 10 minutes and counting, squaring us up for the launch attempt right on 12:17 local time or 23:17 UTC.
We are about to reach another Electron milestone today with our 60th rocket on the pad, ready for launch. Now 60 launches is an impressive feat, but how about 60 rockets in 60 seconds? Let's enjoy this hot and fast recap of every Electron launch to date.
I was literally thinking about this on the drive home.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Jacob pointing out that Black Sky announced a new contract today, so that probably had a lot to do with it.
Ah, very good. Yeah, I was just noticing, I was like, they did the reverse split, right? To go from like under $1 to $4, and now it's back up to 20. They're gonna have to do a regular split at some point.
Too much splits, reverse splits. Someone was asking, better buy Spire or Black Sky? It's funny how things changed 6 months ago. I probably would have said Spire. Now I think you have to say Black Sky after Spire had that maritime deal fall through. They were selling their maritime business and the buyer has pulled out apparently. So they seem to be in a lot of trouble with cash reserves dwindling.
Now, every year since Electron's first mission, we have beaten our own record number of launches from the year before. So you already know that 2025 is gearing up to be another exciting year of even more Electron launches.
Now, one of the foundations to our success and a critical element in the ramp up in Electron's launch cadence is having our very own launch site to fly from. Launch Complex 1 opened as the world's first private orbital launch site and has been the primary launch site for Electron ever since. Having our own launch site means we're always free of traffic jams. With 2 launch pads to cycle between, a 24/7 launch operations team, and rockets always ready to go, Launch Complex 1 helps keep access to space open for the satellites that need to get there. Earlier this week, we caught up with our Director of Test and Launch Operations and today's Launch Director, Michael Pearson.
So Launch Complex 1 is Rocket Lab's privately owned launch complex here in New Zealand, in one of the most remote parts of the country, in a remote part of the world. We have 2 launch pads, as well as a large hangar where we can process multiple Electron vehicles simultaneously, and a number of clean rooms where customers can work on their payloads and integrate their payloads into Electron. The location that we're in here in New Zealand is fantastic. There are very few airplanes flying above us. There are very few ships in the seas around us. And so it's both easy for us to manage those during a launch campaign, and also does not prohibit us from launching pretty much any time. The fact that Rocket Lab owns and operates LC-1 on their own, it's extremely advantageous. It means that we have full control over everything that goes on there. We have first and only priority, and we can do with it what we want. So we can configure things exactly to how Electron is designed, and we can make it work specifically for our needs so that we can turn around launches as fast as anything. We also operate from LC2, which is a Wallops flight facility. It's a very similar activity over there. We just have some other parties that are involved. We have some really great partners that help us with those operations. We've proven that we can launch one rocket after another within 24 hours. And with all the pads occupied, we could do the same for 3 rockets in 24 hours as well. So as the launch rate picks up around the world from all providers, it prohibits flexibility in a lot of cases. So if you are operating from a pad at federal launch sites and another organization is also operating and they have an issue on their vehicle and they have to delay a day, that may affect your opportunities to launch or other parties' opportunities to launch. And it's this cumulative effect that means that everyone's sort of impacted by everyone else. Whereas with our own launch site that we have full control over and are the sole operators at, if we have to delay a day for weather or similar things, then not a big deal. We don't need to stop anyone else from launching. We deal with it ourselves. When we did our first Electron launch from LC-1, it was not only an accomplishment for Electron as a vehicle, but also the fact that we were the first in the world to have a private orbital launch site. And that was a huge deal. You know, the regulatory hurdles that we had to jump through and the efforts that it took to make that happen were just as big of a deal as to get Electron off the pad. And so that was a huge accomplishment, an exciting accomplishment, and we've just leveraged that since then. And, you know, as I've said, added another pad and made it just more and more easy for us to do it. And it's just so liberating to have the freedom to operate from there. So it's the most beautiful launch pad in the world, without a doubt.
T-minus 5 minutes. Hey, Hot Dave.
Now it takes about 9 minutes.
One. Weather is turned here. If I lose power, you might have to emergency get the stream up. So just be prepared.
A 60th Electron launch. The mission begins with liftoff, of course, and shortly after we launch, we quickly reach a critical milestone called Max Q. This is when the aerodynamic stress on the rocket is at its greatest. Once we pass through Max Q at around 2.5 minutes into the flight, the rocket's first stage propellant is depleted. At that point, the 9 Rutherford engines will shut down, the first and second stages will separate, and the stage 2 Rutherford engine will come to life.
Once we make it through staging, Electron's protective fairing shell will separate and fall away. This action exposes the kick stage and Black Sky's Gen 3 satellite to space for the very first time ahead of payload deployment. At around 6.5 minutes into the mission, we perform a unique operation called battery hot swap. We'll go into that in a bit more detail as the milestone occurs. Then, at the 9-minute mark, the second stage will shut down its engine. The kick stage with Black Sky's satellite will separate before entering a transfer orbit, coasting around the Earth for about 40 minutes.
And once that pass is completed, we ignite our Curie engine on the kick stage to circularize our orbit around Earth before the Black Sky satellite can be separated and join its Earth imaging constellation.
Before we get to liftoff, Electron operations will enter the final count. At T-minus 2 minutes, control of the countdown is taken over by Electron's flight computer, which will manage final operations autonomously. Our launch director will then count the clock down from T-minus 10 seconds, with Electron's engines set to ignite at T-minus 2 seconds for a liftoff right on T0.
That's right, and very soon we will be on our way to space for the 60th launch. We're bringing up the audio channels now for mission control to listen through that countdown in real time. So we'll be back with you shortly after liftoff.
Auto sequence is locked.
And confirm all expected flight computer ASGOs are green.
ASGOs are green.
Okay, all stations, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LD is go for launch.
Shout out to the 230 odd folks in Dave's chat, and then almost 200 in mine. Always a good time to see some great people, and always a good time to watch Rocket Lab put something into space.
Yeah, it's popping today. A lot of folks hanging out.
Yeah, it's getting pretty good. I guess not a lot of people doing live streams this afternoon, and it's maybe a little bit more prime time than normal. Sometimes it's a little late. So
yeah.
T-minus 2
Yeah,
minutes.
I was glad that I would get to watch this one because often the time does not cooperate when they're launching from New Zealand.
Right. Yeah, sometimes it can be a little tough.
V asking what the size is compared to Starship. I think they're pretty much the same size, right, Matt?
Which one? Sorry, this one.
I was just joking. They're comparing the size of Electron to Starship.
Very, very close. Yeah. Yeah. I doubt you'd be even able to distinguish if they were right next to each other.
Yeah. Probably because you couldn't see the Electron.
Yeah. Like I only see one rocket. Yeah.
Okay. Getting close to 1 minute here.
Yeah, getting anxious. I always love launches. It's always the second stage separation that always gets me, though. I always get like a little. But
yeah, and battery hot swap.
It's always good.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
High flow engine barges enabled.
Clearly, this one, by the way, not a reusable variant. We don't see that shiny gray section in the red. So, yeah, no surprises there.
Somebody posted a picture of it earlier. I kind of like the contrast because, like, it's black and white, but if you see the nice red stripe, and then it has the Rocket Lab logo.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting.
Yeah.
All right, 10 seconds.
10, 9,
Hey.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Yes.
There we go. Looking good.
Yeah, so far so good.
Stage 1 propulsion nominal.
Fasten your space belts. We are on our way to space with Electron. Velocity and altitude are increasing towards our target of around 27,000 kilometers an hour and an insertion altitude of around 205 kilometers. Now that we've cleared the launch pad, the next major milestone is Max Q. This is the point during the flight in which Electron experiences the highest aerodynamic stress that we can expect during ascent. Now, let's listen into mission control for that crucial call.
Cleared Max Q.
There it is.
Yep.
There goes Electron sailing cleanly through Max Q and carrying onwards to space. You gotta love a daytime launch. We are getting some beautiful views from the onboard cameras back at Earth right now. Electron is now at an altitude of around 21 kilometers and traveling at speeds past 2,900 kilometers per hour. Coming up next is a particularly busy sequence of events, each occurring with only seconds of each other. Electron will first perform main engine cutoff, what we call MECO, which will shut down the Stage 1 Rutherford engines. That's followed by stage separation and then ignition of its space-optimized Rutherford engine to carry on with the mission. You can watch it all unfold across these camera views shortly.
Shout out to Hot Zag.
Stage 1 propulsion holding nominal. Stand by for MECO in 30 seconds.
And Buff Bagel for the super chats. You guys rock, man. I really appreciate y'all. Francisco's also saying we got
15
rebid
seconds to staging.
contract. I don't know if that means all of them.
Entered burnout detect mode.
No, it's just one batch, I believe.
Is it the beta that we have, or is it a different one?
Yeah, it's not one that Rocket Lab was awarded. There was another awardee, and then
Stage separation confirmed.
stage separation. There you go. Ignition.
Always wait till it's always flaming.
This looks a
There it
little
is.
different at the top right. Am I crazy? Can
And
someone,
that is
Francisco?
exactly what
That
we
does
wanted.
look different.
MECO, stage separation, and second stage ignition all
looks
performed
cleaner to me.
flawlessly on Electron's 60th flight. The rocket's second stage fired up healthy and is now continuing well on its way to orbit with Black Sky's Gen 3 payload, traveling now at more than 8,000 kilometers per hour. With the weight of the first stage gone, it's time to drop some more and streamline the journey to space for the second stage. Electron's fairing will soon split and eject its nose cone halves, introducing Gen 3 to the vacuum of space for the very first time. What we're waiting to hear next from Mission Control is that fairing jettison is confirmed. Let's listen in.
There it is.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And there goes that nose cone. Electron's fairing has been jettisoned. We are now 3 minutes into the flight with less than 6 minutes remaining for the second stage burn.
I think you're right, Dave, but they normally call that stuff out. So I'm a little bit...
Yeah. I think it's a
Guidance is nominal.
newer battery.
If it... Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on it, because if we get a chance to chat with the guys, I'm curious... Because they said the move from the Beast to this later model was like a couple percentage points in capacity uplift, and I'm curious if this will have the same, or if it's just a minor cost savings, or if it's actually going to be capacity uplift as well.
Yeah.
Right, T plus 4 minutes on the clock, and the mission is continuing nominally for Electron and Black Sky's Gen 3 satellite, having made it through liftoff, stage separation, second stage ignition, and fairing jettison. Our next milestone is one that you will only witness on Electron. Our rocket's 3D printed engines are electrically powered by batteries, but the energy needing to keep the rocket going into space means that those batteries can drain within minutes. To keep the mission moving along, Electron's flight computer instructs the second stage to switch the engine's power source to its next battery pack, and it's a move we call the battery hot swap.
When that action happens, the old set of batteries are jettisoned and fall away from Electron, so you might catch them on your screen when they do. Otherwise, the comms call to confirm battery hot swap was successful should be coming up shortly from Mission Control.
Yeah, one of the things I think a lot of people don't realize, Rocket Lab has been launching satellites for quite some time. This is the 60th launch. And majority of the time, they've been carrying payloads.
Guidance is nominal. 200 seconds remaining.
Sorry, I'm just pulling up the article that Francisco was talking about there.
With the battery change?
No.
Oh, the SDA.
Yeah. So Rocket Lab could potentially have the opportunity.
Approaching up SWAT in 30 seconds.
I'm kind of curious because like a lot of those SDA contracts are pretty big. Like the one that Rocket Lab got was actually rather small comparatively to.
Yeah, I mean it was still 500 something million, but it was one on the smaller end.
Totally,
but yeah,
and
so
this time
ago,
around we're prime contractors, so it might even be more in our favor than it was before.
Yeah, I think the previous winner probably, I would imagine, still has the best chance. But oh, there we go. Yeah.
Electron has successfully completed its battery hot swap on the second stage. We're now 6 minutes into the flight at an altitude of 204 kilometers. We've passed most key milestones for this launch, with only a few more to go, including second engine cutoff. At SECO, the Rutherford engine will throttle down and then stop in preparation for kick stage separation. This marks the end of the first phase of the mission, which is expected at around 9 minutes into the flight.
Interesting. Let's see. They're similar to the Bay layer. Rocket has a prime for that layer.
Now, the journey from the launch pad to the mission's target altitude takes less than 10 minutes altogether. Now, at T plus 7 minutes since launch, that means we only have a couple more minutes to go until Electron concludes this first phase of the mission. Our speed is at more than 19,000 kilometers an hour, so not much more to go now until we reach that optimal insertion speed of around 27,000 kilometers an hour.
Those guarantees are risky.
Yeah, I think it is the space junk. Maybe it burns up in the atmosphere. We'll never know. Did it state what contract it was, Hot Dave?
I mean, I remember reading about this before. So there was some irregularities with the bidding process for one tranche, or not tranche, but one section of that tranche of the SDA constellation. And then someone who
Only
didn't
a
get
few
it
seconds now
complained.
until we reach SECO, or second engine cutoff. This is the moment when Electron's second stage Rutherford engine shuts down ahead of stage separation, with the kick stage carrying Black Sky's Gen 3 payload. Standing by with mission control for that call.
Almost there for the mission. So yeah, I guess bottom line is people will be recompeting for a batch of satellites. I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but I'm sure it will be a hotly contested competition, and the folks who previously won it will be resubmitting their bid as well. So
Seeker confirmed.
Stage separation confirmed.
Nominal transfer orbit achieved.
Beautiful. A clean engine shutdown for Electron and a smooth separation for the kick stage with Black Sky's Gen 3 satellite. Great work so far by today's mission operators, and now it is on to the next phase of the mission to place Gen 3 on orbit with its constellation. The kick stage takes about 45 minutes to complete its transfer orbit around Earth, and that'll set it up nicely for payload deployment for Gen 3. Now, we said it at the start, but it bears repeating. From Earth to orbit in 9 minutes. 60 launches in, and it still doesn't get old.
For now, the kick stage is in cruise mode, making its journey around to the opposite side of the globe ahead of its circularization burn from our relightable Curie engine. 40 minutes until that milestone, so for now, we'll kick back and wait for the kick stage to come alive. You can track the mission's progress around Earth with this tracking animation. If we're above your town, give us a wave. We'll see you back here shortly.
I do like the new animation a lot. It looks really clean. Not that the old one was bad. It's just this one's pretty clean, and I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like they have upped their game lately when it comes to the coverage on their launches.
Interesting. So curious, do you know of any other future launches that are supposed to come? Hot Francisco to send me something. I'm not sure if he wants me to share it. Let me know if you want me to share it, Francisco. Okay, it's just the differences in the recent. Let's see. Differences in recent. Share this tab. So this looks like the space tape around the battery looks a little different.
Okay. It did look kind of shinier today and stuff, but I guess that was just kind of in the sun.
Interesting. Yeah, I guess it is the same. Cord, everything looks kind of the same.
Okay.
I don't know.
So you got any predictions for us for the upcoming earnings while we're waiting here?
Good question, man. I mean, the thing that I keep wondering is if we're going to be in a space where we get delayed, because we're kind of getting down to no BS time, right? I mean, the launch was scheduled for June 25, July 25 is kind of where I'm giving like a 2-month window, and there's a lot of things that still need to happen. Whether or not a lot of that gets revealed that it's been done, or within the next few weeks or even days, even they start to release some of the testing results of like some of the remaining tanks, wet testing, integrated testing, etc. I guess remains to be seen, but it looks like with respect to like the launch pad, everything seems to be going in the right direction. But what I still have yet to really see or hear progress about is kind of like an integrated test of all the components together, and I know that's going to take some time. I'm not saying at this point that there has to be some sort of delay, but I think with like a wet test, at best, you could maybe turn a wet test into, or like an initial integrated test into a launch within 2 months at best. But to me, I would want a little bit more time, like 3, 4, maybe even 5 months between that point. So I'm kind of getting a little bit, I don't want to say iffy at this point, but I feel like it's going to be announced that there's at least going to be a couple month delay. I don't think that there's anything or showstoppers that would lead us to believe that there's 6 months or more delay, but I think it's reasonable to assume that there's a slight push, and that's okay. In my opinion, I'm sure there's plenty of windows at Wallops that are open for a launch test. And to me, I'd rather wait a month, 2 months, 3 months, and make sure that it's as close to production ready as it can be, rather than just having something that's like 80 or 85%, Neutron, when that might not show you the best data. Like if you're going to spend $50 million, probably more on a launch, and I guess cumulatively for the R&D, over $350 million on a launch, I'd want to have the most representative model that I'm sending into space be that. So I don't want to send some like skeleton Neutron, right? I want to send the thing that's most likely. And that was kind of a gamble that they had taken. And then I want to turn it back to you and hear your thoughts. That's kind of the gamble that they had taken. Like they didn't wait to build a prototype of the Archimedes before they built the assembly line. Like they knew what the assembly line should look like before they built it, to help speed up the process, right? And so I'm sure they did the same with some of the other parts. And so I'm sure what they're doing is just little tweaks here and there, and that'll add a month here, add a month there, and at the end of the day, it'll delay a couple months. So overall, I mean, we've already been delayed by 6 months. We were supposed to launch December 2024, so 2-3 months ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if we get pushed again. And it's a rocket launch for heaven's sake. So, but I think other than that, positive results with respect to what cadence we're expecting for the year, and then just obvious revenue growth will help offset that. And it'll be the first time that we see Neutron on the backlog. So I'm curious to see what that shows up as. And I don't remember when the NASA award was given. I think it was early January. So that backlog uplift might not show up until 1Q, but it'll be at least $100 million added to the backlog associated with those 2 launches for the undisclosed customer in 2026, 2027 timeframe. Plus other things that have come down the pipeline. So curious to your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be good earnings. I'm excited. I did say, I don't know if you remember back to when we made our predictions at the start of the year, I thought maybe October, November was more reasonable for when we would see Neutron actually fly. So I think they're still tracking more towards that. I think the June number date we heard was mostly like an internal estimate that I don't think they actually publicly guided for that. They just kind of said mid 2025. So I don't know if they have to like officially announce a delay yet, but I'll be happy with October if they do get it off anytime around there. I really hope we see some nice, cool pictures of, the parts coming together. We usually do for earnings. I'd like to see some announcements on new contracts, especially Space Systems, as they've delivered those Escapade satellites. They're really getting through that Varda contract now. I think number 3 is done or almost done of 4. So hopefully, I'm hoping to see more Space Systems contracts. And I think it'll be a great quarter. Did you see, by the way, so Rocket Lab released their payload guide for Neutron, and it showed it was basically divided into 2 halves. So it's like much more modular than you usually see for rockets, and they can kind of stack the top section onto a different bottom section and move it around, and they transport them separately. So I think they had the like core stage and upper stage or something like that. I forget what they call it, or not stages, but yeah, it's a very cool design though. I thought that was quite exciting and will be different to see.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to go through the entirety of the PDF. I looked at some of the pictures and schematics that they provided, and then it was taken down, and I just haven't. And I'm sure people have renditions of it on the internet and posts about it, and I could keep doing more due diligence on it, but. I think I got everything I needed out of it based off of what I saw in the pictures. Obviously, return to landing site. Obviously, it's going to be less than 10K kilogram to orbit, and then everything to fully expendable being like 18 to 19K in terms of payload to orbit. So really cool to be able to see that piece of it and the different kind of configurations. And so really excited about Neutron just in general, man. I think it's going to be a game changer. I think there's so much opportunity that I think there's, for some reason, there's still there's group of people that don't want to work with Elon, even though I think he's done a phenomenal work in not only in buying X and those sorts of things, but also the automotive space as well as with SpaceX doing phenomenal things. So we'd love to continue to see him succeed, and I think him succeeding is only going to be better for the entirety of the industry, allowing it to grow and expand. But I continue to see more and more people, and more companies really start to focus on the space. I mean, Apple's continuing to invest. You have ASTS, which people are starting to invest in pretty heavily as well. So you start to have other traditional telecom companies starting to invest heavily into the space. You have Black Sky. Their imaging is getting phenomenal. Planet Lab. All these companies are continuing to put things into space, and so I'm very curious to see. And not only that, but like, even if you were to, it's going to be consistent revenue because these things fall out of circulation, right? I mean, they fall out of orbit rather than circulation, and they have to be replaced. And so it's almost like you get to a point where you have a treadmill, and I don't think we're near any sort of peak or anything like that in terms of how much stuff we're putting up into space, how many satellites, etc. And so it's going to be interesting to see like what the annual run rate is. Like right now, we're all trying to just grow in terms of space, but then there's also just going to be, hey, we have so many satellites in the space. Take ASTS or Black Sky or whoever. They say we have so many satellites in space. 5 per year, or 5% or 10% per year are going to fall out. We need to replace 10 per year. We need somebody to replace that 10. Was it going to go with Rocket Lab? Are they going to go with the Falcon 9? Are they going to go with Blue Origin? And so I feel like we're still so much in our infancy about it that we don't really recognize how long term a lot of this is going to take out and take place in. And not only that, but the catalyst associated with, once we're over the hill with Neutron, what are we going to find out about the Rocket Lab constellation itself, and what's going to be the piece that they decide to unveil to the world? Because they've stated that it's not going to be internet or anything like that. They said it's going to be something different. And so a lot of people say, well, if it's not internet, who cares? But my thought process is they're not dumb. They've surprised me every leg of the way, and educated me on stuff that I didn't even realize was possible or beneficial. And it's obviously made me somewhat wealthy in the meantime. So I trust these guys know what they're doing. Adam and Peter have continued to educate me, and I go back to that 2022 Investor Day, reading through it, because before then I was like, do I actually want to hold on to this company? Stock price was going, oh wow, stock price was going down. I didn't necessarily understand why they were spending 400-500 million on all these different companies that wasn't associated with rocket launching. At the time I was like, this is a rocket launching company, why do we need to build satellites and this, that, and the other? And I just didn't have that education of why until really that 2022 Investor Day. So I would really love a 2025 Investor Day, Peter.
It would be nice, yeah.
Because that masterclass, like hour and a half, was absolutely phenomenal. But at the same time, it's like these guys continue to educate me. Even the small things that we talk about with them on a quarterly basis, it's like they really have put the rigor and the thought. I mean, shit. I mean, they're dealing with this stuff 60 to 80 hours a week, right? So hopefully they've done the thought. But it's nice because these guys are on the founder stage and they're literally growing the business. So they haven't been to a place where they're bloated and have all these big contracts and they can kind of put their feet up on their desk, right? They're still scavenging for every single crumb that they can get. But anyway, a long way to say that the future is bright for Rocket Lab, and I'm very excited to see where it goes from here.
Yeah. I mean, they have the culture as they grow. I don't know if you saw the news about Blue Origin is I think they're trying to kind of struggle to rein in the excesses and become more lean. And they just announced 10% layoffs of the company. And there's a lot of people chattering on the internet who are like employees saying they've really gone about this the wrong way. And a lot of negativity about Blue right now in their next launch. So some concerns there. But yeah, you don't really have to worry about the culture too much with Rocket Lab, I don't think. By the way, I was just checking the after hours. I mean, we're still pretty flat, up maybe a little less than 1%, so no big deal. But wouldn't shock me if we're in the negative tomorrow, given the history of, we seem to go negative a lot after successful launches. So any predictions for tomorrow?
On the stock price, yeah, generally flat to slightly down. At some points it was like really bad. Sometimes it was like always like 5% down. Normally it's gotten a little bit better. But that was when it was a little bit more volatile, I guess, over the past 6 months or so. But luckily, over the past few months, it's because we haven't had a launch in a while. So maybe I'm what's the word, jinxing us here. But I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting to kind of think, and I think I don't know enough. It's really cool to be able to see what the possibilities are with respect to this. And if I could be attached to anybody, it would be Rocket Lab. And a key reason why, Vince and I talked about this over the weekend at Rocket Lab Weekly, because I think he was noting how that might happen, the layoffs happening at Blue Origin. And it just goes to show you, Jeff has been putting about $2 billion a year into Blue Origin for quite some time. They have about 10,000 employees. They have a lot of infrastructure built, and they've done well, right? They've launched New Shepard 20 odd times. They have the New Glenn rocket, which isn't a small feat. It's a beautiful rocket. It was very successful, and hope to see that eventually land itself as well. We'll see with respect to that, but to see where they've gotten to with $2 billion a year, pretty much for the last 20 odd years. I don't know how long it's been at $2 billion a year, but let's just assume, it's a lot of money invested into the company to get to where they are today. And Rocket Lab has done it. Yeah, in my opinion, Rocket Lab's done it with a fraction of the cost, right? And so, that $2 billion a year, while great, to me, how much of that is inefficiently spent, because Rocket Lab was able to put, or will be able to put, Neutron on the pad for, they said 200 million initially. And yes, it's going to be closer to 350. But at the end of the day, it's a fraction of the cost of not just the budget that they probably spent on New Glenn as a whole, but a fraction of the annual cost of what it costs to run Blue Origin. So it kind of scratches your head a little bit in terms of what $2 billion to do. It just goes to show you, like, sometimes when you're solving problems, money isn't the answer. Like, you actually need to think through them a lot. And I think a lot of companies, what they do, especially when they get larger and they have the excess capital, is they just throw money at it in hopes that, and in reality, you really need to think about things methodically, because you throw a lot of money, you throw a lot of resource at people, then you have checks and balances. With checks and balances within an organization could be good, but it can also drive inefficiency. And then you end up with a lot of chiefs and not a lot of Indians. And I don't mean that in any sort of derogatory way, but it's like you end up with people that aren't actually doing a lot of work, that is kind of talking about doing work and talking about direction. And it's like, you don't really need direction. Like, you rely on Jeff for direction. You rely on Peter for direction. You rely on Elon
sorry
for
to
direction.
Interrupt. That was one comment I saw a lot on the Reddit and forums and stuff from employees, is like they were laying off too many of the line workers and engineers and stuff like that, and not the VPs, managers, and it's a little backwards that way, but
I feel like
hopefully they right the ship.
Yeah, I think it's typical in business, unfortunately.
Reminds me of that cartoon. You've got like one guy digging a hole, 10 people standing around inside it. The guy in the hole is like Dave, and then everyone standing around is like, we should fire Dave. Anyway. By the way, did you see my fancy shirt, Space Company Owner? And then I've got
like
like
that.
0.00001%, I think.
Yeah,
Something
I need to check where I'm at, because I'm not close to. I was trying to get to was it 0.01? Yeah, definitely not 0.1%. That would mean I'm very rich. I'm not. But I wanted to get closer to 0.01% ownership of Rocket Lab, and I'm getting closer, but I'm still far away. So I need to get to that point. But yeah, I think in order to get to 0.01, I need 50,000 shares, because we're at about 500 million shares outstanding. So to get to 0.01%, you need 50,000.
Yeah, it'd be tough for me to get there. Well, I think maybe if we have a major pullback, and I would liquidate other stocks. But then I don't know. It's always a tough when you're talking about selling a stock to buy its stock. It's like, do you really want to sell, say, Tesla? I have some Nvidia. Do I really want to sell that? I don't know. I guess I could sell some index funds, but I try to be at least a little bit responsible and have my safe section of my portfolio. Yeah, maybe I'll get there one day.
It really depends, man. Like, I thought the same in 2022. I was like, should I sell X? Should I sell Y? You know, and it's worked out well. And granted, I add a lot of capital to the portfolio too. Like, investing is my hobby. So, somebody might spend it on like a jet ski, or somebody might spend it on like the things that I spend money on are like vacations and stock in the stock market, which are probably some of the best returns on investment. Granted, I don't have any kids or anything like that, so my responsibility and capital outlay for that is low so far. So a lot of my money just goes to the stock market, and it's paid out well. But at the end of the day, would I double down? Would I sell things? It really depends. Like, I have some things that I want to trim right now.
Do you mind sharing, like, what other positions do you have in your portfolio? I know you have Palantir.
Yeah.
Palantir and Rocket Lab, two of the bigger ones?
Yeah, those are the two largest. Let me just make sure I'm not screen sharing. I can run through. I'll talk a little bit about where I'm at. I stopped sharing the number
okay.
probably about 3 years ago, but I'm more than happy to share maybe some relative sizes of the positions. But let's see. Let me go to the symbol. What's the largest first? That's smallest. Or no, current value. So right now, and keep in mind, I have Rocket Lab in two different areas. So it's Palantir. S&P 500 is probably my largest position, because that's I have a large individual brokerage account position. Let me just make sure I'm not sharing. Okay. Large individual brokerage account position, but I also have 401k and other places as well. Rocket Lab is by far my largest individual stock position, but Palantir is kind of closing in on that. Actually, Palantir might have eclipsed it. I have to double check if I add up both positions that I have of Rocket Lab. One's in one account, one's in another. Then there's Amazon. That's pretty big. Dutch Bros has grown pretty substantially. We got Google. I also have a good amount of Bitcoin. I'm not massive amounts, but it's there. Next Decade is up there. Actually bigger than I thought.
Next Decade.
SoFi Technologies. Next Decade's an LNG play. I have some long calls in SMCI that have done well over the past few weeks. And then it starts to tail off a little bit. But like Venture Global, that's one that I'm starting to accumulate right now. That's another LNG play. But this SMCI play has kind of gotten out of hand really quickly. But other than that, yeah, it's mostly just some small secondary positions. Then it all shows up as small options here and there, covered calls and cascade puts. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in the portfolio elsewhere. I have some company stock, which I don't really disclose who I work for, but people are interested. They can look me up on LinkedIn. It's not a secret. Just try to separate church and state there. But yeah, those are the big ones: Google, Amazon, Palantir, Rocket Lab, Dutch Bros is squeaked in there, and then it was SoFi before Dutch Bros, but I trimmed my SoFi and bought Nubank leaps. And
Oh
so
yeah, I've
far
heard
those
about
have been,
Nubank.
yeah, some of those have been doing pretty well. So,
Mm,
what about
good.
you? I know you have a lot of different space stocks. You're much better about the space stock stuff than I am.
I mean, I've tried to get into it a little bit there. To be honest, other than Rocket Lab, all my space stocks are very small positions. But yeah, in the space industry, obviously Rocket Lab by far the biggest. I bought some Planet, which has kind of turned it around a bit lately and done all right. Redwire, it's done well for me lately, as well as Intuitive Machines is kind of a cool little company. It's done well for me lately as well. Those are my main space companies. I've been interested in Black Sky and Spire, some of the other ones, but yeah, not holding them. And then Tesla still have a large position in, just never sold. I'm kind of just waiting out the full self-driving and robots on that one. I don't know, turbulent times right now anyway for Tesla. But I think once they get to that point, it'll be very worth it. And then I still also have my index funds, S&P 500. I'm Canadian, so I have some Canadian index funds as well that I kind of want to get rid of. And something you don't really think about very much is actually, because I hold so many American companies as a Canadian, and the Canadian dollar is frankly like shit right now. So it actually helps whenever I bring the money back into Canadian dollars. It's like a nice little boost. So that's actually helped out quite a bit. And then, yeah, I just have some, some Mag 7 type names, NVIDIA, Google as well, some Apple, but I've kind of trimmed that. So a little bit of Amazon, I think. And yeah, a lot of index funds. I recently sold my Airbnb because I got tired of waiting for that to do something. But I did kind of like the business model on Airbnb, but I don't know. The returns.
The business model is beautiful, so I'm trying to replicate it because I have my own Airbnbs, right? And so
yeah,
I'm trying to replicate it because it's like you get a lot of cash. So I've seasonal rentals at the moment, and I'm in the process of buying a long-term rental. So we'll see how that pans out. But the short-term rentals are great because you get a lot of cash in the summertime, and then you kind of just sit on it. And it's just like I'm like the opposite timing of Airbnb. So Airbnb gets all their money in like the fourth quarter, first quarter, and they just sit on the cash until they pay it out. Well, mine's the opposite. So I get all my money in the second and third quarter, while obviously that's when I start to have the majority of my people, because everyone wants to go to the beach for the summer. And then I just sit on it. And then like throughout the winter time, I'm just slowly like losing, but I just have all this money sitting in checking account, not checking, high yield savings. And last year we generated like a couple grand just by having money sitting in the high yield savings. So that's kind of my goal, and that's what Airbnb does, right? They just have everyone's money and they have it sitting in a high yield savings. They generate money off of that while they wait. It's a really good business model in that respect. So I'm just trying to replicate it as much as I can because I think it's genius.
Yeah. There's so much regulation around it now. I don't know. It sounds like it's okay where you are, but where I am, like all these cities are worried about Airbnbs driving up the cost of long-term rental for like residents. So they try to really clamp down on it. So I do worry about that a little bit, but I've always
I'm trying to, thank you for becoming a member, Kelly. Much appreciated. I'm trying to do as much direct rentals as possible because one, it's cheaper for the client. Like Airbnb does take like a 12-15% uplift on it. And so if you do direct, it does help the client a little bit and makes it a little bit more digestible. And it requires a little bit more effort and due diligence because obviously Airbnb, they have like a legit secured payment system. So you can't really get fooled. Versus if you take direct payment, like you don't have that Airbnb coverage, you don't have the guaranteed payment. So you're kind of dealing with like, will this check bounce? You have to like send paper contracts back and forth through DocuSign, all that sort of stuff. You have to like, is this person's license picture that they sent me real? Like, you know what I mean? Versus like Airbnb, they have all that legitimately automated. So it's interesting in that respect, but it's been fun. I haven't had too many problems as of yet, and the houses I've appreciated pretty well. But But I'm excited to get into the long-term rental because, as you probably can imagine, short-term rentals, it's a lot of touch points, like multiple times per week. You're talking to people that want to rent and things of the like. But curious, while I have you on the horn, what's your long-term goal? So like, what are you investing for? Like, what's the objective of Uncle Dave? Like, is Dave just trying to get to like 2 mil, 3 mil Canadian or US, and you say, I'm done, I'm leaving YouTube? Or is it to build a personal brand? And what's the Dave goal?
I've been wondering that myself, to be honest. So, as I think about investing, I've always really liked the idea of financial independence, not necessarily because I want to stop working and just sit on a couch for the rest of my life, but I just like the idea that, if I got fired for whatever reason, or AI comes for my job in the industry, and like basically I'm not reliant on anyone or anyone else. But I enjoy investing in kind of the game for what it is, for its own, like, even if you took the money out in some ways. So I think I would probably always do it, even if I got to like 5 million, 6 million. Obviously, I still have a ways to go to get there. And yeah, it's just been a fun hobby, YouTube. I don't know if it'll ever really be a significant portion of my income compared to like my day job or whatever, but you can dream, I guess.
Well, your content's really good. You obviously have a really good following. You're growing faster than I am, which isn't that's not like a hit or anything like that. You put in a lot of effort, and so you definitely should be rewarded for that. And definitely have become a staple in the space community, providing really good content. And so, yeah, I've always just kind of wondered, like, to me, 3 years, well, I guess it was 2021. So 2021, I started seeing the numbers go in a certain direction. I know how much I'm saving on an annual basis. And that's, I was like, damn, I'm like, I kind of set my sights too short. Like, it was almost like, I want to get to 2.5, 3 million and like call it a day and like, retire. And it's like, well, I kind of got to the place where you're at mentally, where it's like, I'm never really going to retire per se. I might switch careers, but I'm never going to like there might be a 6-month hiatus where I put my feet up and go to a bunch of beaches worldwide and like check out Thailand, Indonesia, and a bunch of different spots. But when I come back to the States or wherever I, land, whether that's, who knows where, for my long-term, I guess, living, if it's still here in Houston, most likely, or what. But I don't think I'll ever retire. I might just switch careers. And to be frank, I mean, I kind of went from the goal of like 2.5, 3 million kind of being the thought, to then just being like, all right, like I'll get to 8 figures and I'll reevaluate. And so it's kind of like that's kind of the thought process for me right now. And so that's hopefully something that's attainable. It's like, I obviously have higher ambitions than that, but like if I fail and only get to 8 figures, I mean, I guess you can't really. But my hope is at the same time is that I help others get to that point. So like it really helps, not to the 8-figure part, but like, high 6-figure, low 7-figure sort of spots. Like when I hear people making even something like $10,000, I get super ecstatic. But I've had people literally reach out to me that have made like over 6-figure, like over $100,000. That like, just like, I'm just like, holy crap. But a lot of the times it's kind of really, I want to get your kind of thoughts. I'm sure you've had people reach out to you as well because of your great content and you kind of being a shepherd in this space as well. It's like, it kind of feels surreal because it's like, you're not really doing anything other than providing good due diligence and understanding how the stock may or may not perform based off of how it's currently valued. But at the same time, it's like, you're not the one doing the work. Like everyone's like, Matt, like thanks for Rocket Lab and like opening my eyes. But at the same time, like I just saw great potential in other people. I saw great potential in what Sir Peter Becker is doing. I saw great potential what Adam was doing. I learned from them. Their Investor Day presentation, they brought me along, and so it's like it's nice to hear that other people are doing well, but it's kind of like surreal because I'm not actually doing anything.
Yeah,
but I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, yeah, thank you very much to On Orbit Studio for joining the channel members. Much appreciated. And I think, don't sell yourself short. There is so much value in just finding these opportunities. They don't come along every day, and building that confidence in, like, it doesn't happen very often. You look at a lot of investors, they, if you're buying index funds, you're not getting a 2x in any kind of years, never mind a 5x, never mind a 10x. Like, so I think if you communicate the thesis very well and are very knowledgeable about a company and do a lot of research and help people because they don't have the time, it's extremely valuable for them. And yeah, it's important that people continue to do that kind of thing.
Do you have ambitions to be like financial advisor or open a hedge fund or anything like that?
I never did, and frankly, like, some relatives and stuff have offered to just have me invest their money, and I always kind of shied away from it because I was always worried, well, what if this is the time I make a big mistake and now it's someone else's money? I'm like, strangely enough, I guess I worry way more about messing up with someone else's money than my own. So no, I don't know. Yeah, I don't think I would do that. I don't have a very good long-term vision in mind. I'm just kind of enjoying investing, enjoying meeting new people online, sharing my research because why not? And it's also a good forcing function. Having the channel kind of forces me to be thorough in my research in ways that I wasn't previous to having the channel, and just kind of seeing where it goes.
Silly question. How did the channel come about? Because for me, for example, it was more about documenting my progress. So like I recognized that I was always going to be building a portfolio. I was obsessed with investing, and so I started getting these dividends coming in. I was like, if I get hit by a bus, I would like my family members to like at least try to replicate what I've been doing, right? And I was a dividend investing focus much before focusing on things where I actually kind of knew a little bit more about what I was doing and picking undervalued stocks and riding them and doing well with that. And I guess some of it's an opportunity, some of it's luck, all that. But that's the reason why I started the channel, and it started turning and morphing into like actually trying to help others rather than just documenting my progress. And I'm curious, like, I think you said something about, weren't you trying to do like DIY stuff first, or was that something? I'm trying to remember.
No, I did kind of DIY home reno here, but it was originally going to just be a investing channel. And the funny thing was for me is, I didn't set out when I made the channel, Rocket Lab wasn't even really on my radar and wasn't a space investor. And it kind of happens this way sometimes where, these things, you kind of just find your niche and it just kind of just happens. And yeah, every space video, which I'm always been passionate about space, but every space company video I made started doing better. And then it just kind of morphed into mostly space stocks, but it's something I've quite enjoyed. I was just sharing that link because someone was saying that they couldn't find the link to the channel or something like that.
Interesting. No, absolutely. Of the 170, 160 of you guys that are watching my channel, please be sure to subscribe to Dave. Dave's a good friend of the channel, and he provides a lot of value. And to be very honest, like, just be point blank, like, he provides way more in-depth commentary and stuff on space, and he covers a lot more companies. Like, I barely keep up with Rocket Lab as it is. So it's like, as I like to focus more on one stock, Dave does a really good job about diving into some of the other companies out there. And same with Scotto. Scotto does a really good job about keeping up with the other companies as well.
Yeah, thanks. Just bringing it back to the launch here, do we know when they're deploying the satellite? Like when it's...
They said, I don't know if it was like 45 minutes or 45 minutes from now after 9 minutes. So you don't have to stay around. If you do feel like you got to go, that's more than half the time I stay until the actual deployment. Half the time I don't. It really just depends. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, probably won't stay the whole time. I don't usually go much beyond an hour when it's a live stream, at least usually.
Yeah.
I don't know how guys like Amit do it with the streams and stuff.
They interact with the chat, man, and I think a lot of it is that, and they feed off the chat, and they, a lot of it as well. You can recycle content, like, if somebody will come in, and what'll end up happening is, I don't know. I've done streams before where it's 3 hours. Generally, it's always with somebody else, but Yeah, a lot of times you'll end up having people ask the same question. Like, you'll always have a rolling group of people coming in and out. And it's like, well, what happened? It's like, well, then you can kind of just recap, and it takes 2 to 3 minutes to recap what has happened, today. So people ask it enough, then you say it 2 or 3 times, and that's 10, 15 minutes right there. So cool.
Courageous.
Yeah, like I said, don't feel obligated, man. I know it's late.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll probably hop off then, but much appreciated. Thank you for the invite. Another great launch for Rocket Lab. That's 60 in the books, 100 not too far away.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
I mean, at the rate we're going, we get maybe 20 plus this year. Starting to look like 2 years, 100 maybe. Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah,
I think Haste is accelerating really rapidly. I think the opportunity there is underappreciated. So yeah,
it'll be interesting. I'm curious to see if we beat out the Falcon 9, because it took them 10 years to get to 102 launches. So I'm curious to see if we get it in 9 or if we have to get to 10 as well. But like you said, we're accelerating. We're at 16 last year, and they said they're going to try to beat it this year. So what it takes to match. What it takes to match SpaceX Falcon 9 is 16 between now and I guess year 10, which I guess would be 2027. So maybe it's 2028, one of the two. So if we're able to accelerate beyond that and get into year 9, which I guess would be 2027, that would be cool.
I think they can definitely do it. Barring another anomaly or something, but. They seem incredibly solid.
Agreed. I think the only thing that is one is Electron. Can you count the Electron ones as being the same? Or sorry, the Haste ones being the same as Electron? So it's like, to me, I want to kind of keep track of both in terms of like which is which, right? Like, if you remove Haste, do you still beat the Falcon 9 to 100 launches or not? But it's not too difficult, because I think we've only had the 4 Haste launches so far. So
yeah, Haste is going to be accelerating. They have that massive Kratos contract announced. It's kind of getting roped in with this whole Iron Dome stuff. As hypersonics is big, and defense for hypersonics and testing, which is where Electron comes in. So I wouldn't be surprised if Haste grows extremely rapidly. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from in terms of keeping them separate, because one's suborbital, but I don't know. To my mind, they're all rocket launches.
It's the same. Yeah, it's the same platform.
Yeah.
So cool. You're the man.
Okay. See you later. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in, and catch you next time.
Amen. I might just stay on a little bit more, answer some of these questions. Appreciate everybody hopping on. 150 odd of you on my channel, 145. We had over 200 in each channel. Dave got close to 250, so I appreciate you guys. A lot of good comments, man. Love you guys and appreciate you guys more than you can believe. It's always a good time to be able to listen and hear from you guys. Especially we got Miss Kelly in the chat. I haven't seen her in a little bit. She's been busy, so congratulations on all the success, Kelly. You've been doing phenomenal and keeping track of you, and always love your house updates as well. House updates are fun for me because, well, they're not fun for me. Let me explain house updates. My sister is very much like Kelly, very good about like interior design and being able to decorate and make homes beautiful. I'm more of the money guy, so I'm like, don't spend money. And so I told my sister, I don't even want to say how much we spent on the house last year. It's a lot, but it cash flows well, so I shouldn't complain. And you can put a lot of things on payment plans, thankfully. But if you look at the gross number, you'd probably throw up. I almost threw up. So, but overall, the house looks phenomenal. The new house that we bought in May last year. So, luckily, this house that we're buying, it's a long-term rental that we should close on March 10th. There's not a lot to do with that one. We might have to put a fence in, but other than that, should be good. But I just admire the folks that have that mental part of their brain where they can actually do interior design, because I just can't see it. Like, I can't visualize what it would look like with better paint. I can't visualize what it would look like with a bench here or that or the other. Like I just, my brain doesn't work that way. My brain works for numbers. So in that respect, you know, it's kind of, it is what it is. Let me just do one thing. Let me do this. Oh.
Welcome back. Our 60th Electron mission called Fasten Your Space Belts launched from Launch Complex 1 just 53 minutes ago, carrying a single Gen 3 satellite for Black Sky to add to its constellation of Earth imaging sats. But now it is time to unbuckle and get ready for payload deployment, because we are just a few minutes away from completing Electron's final actions that will place Gen 3 on orbit and complete our mission.
Over the past 40 minutes or so, Gen 3 has been coasting around Earth, attached to Electron's kick stage. And just moments ago, the 3D printed Curie engine ignited to start our final circularization burn that sets up payload deployment. Curie is our tiny engine we've designed and manufactured for in-space propulsion. It allows us to adjust orbits and make the changes needed to ensure satellites are delivered exactly where they need to go, which is exactly what you need when you're building out a constellation. Engine shut.
I think we had audio failure or something. Not hearing anything. Okay. Appreciate the 2 months, man. Much appreciated. Always love seeing those. I guess they're just doing an animation. Oh, there we go. Deployment confirmed.
And to space Gen 3. That's payload deployment confirmed from Mission Control. Congratulations to the launch team and congratulations to Black Sky. Well,
I just want to make sure I don't get demonetized. Let's see.
Electron.
And with that, our 60th launch is another mission success for Electron. There's just no slowing down for us anytime soon, though, with our next mission scheduled and ready to fly from LC1 in just a few short weeks. We'll share the full details for that mission across all the usual sites and platforms where you can keep up to date with Rocket Lab news.
And don't forget, if you want to be part of the team building spacecraft, their components, and sending them up to space, check out the careers section of our website at rocketlabusa.com. Thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to share our missions with you, and we'll see you back on the pad soon. This is Rocket Lab Mission Control, signing off.
Very cool. Always a good time to hang out with everybody, looking at Rocket Lab stuff, watching rockets launch. Whether it's Blue Origin, whether it's Rocket Lab, it's always fun to hang out with you guys. But let's get back to the chat, man. Let's just see. Matt's portfolio. Matt's portfolio is going to 0, man. But we did hear there, they talked about within a few weeks they should have another one at LC1. So I'm curious if that means that they're going to do anything at LC2 or anything of the like. But yes, it looks like that everything is up and running. So hopefully by end Feb, early March, they have another one at LC1. Will the stock price go up after Q4 earnings? I don't know. I do not know. I'm anticipating it's either going to be flat or down, but based off of my my predictions as of late, it probably means it's going to go to $100 a share tomorrow. So there we go. Yeah, that's what it is. But my thought process is that you're going to have to outpace an offset. What I anticipate is a delay in Neutron by at least a month or two. Whether or not they display or discuss it, or maybe even wait until May to fully disclose it is another question. They might just state that they're going to delay it. And we have another earnings report in May timeframe, so not too far away. And that'll be for the first quarter. And I'm kind of curious to see, maybe they'll come up with, hey, we have a bunch of haste missions. We have 1 or 2 Neutron missions this year. We have a lot of Electrons. And maybe even if they do push Neutron, by a month or two, it still shows how they're going to be extremely busy this year. I anticipate they will be. They could also note something with respect to, now that Neutron's coming down, maybe more about when they'll be giving information about the constellation piece, or maybe a timeline. Doesn't necessarily have to provide, in my opinion, like super minute details about what's actually going to be going up into space, but even just a timeline, so that way we know, okay, within the next 6 months we should have Neutron up. So hopefully by the end of this year we'll have 1 or 2 Neutron launches, and then the next thing we could look forward to is, one, hopefully the reusability of that happens day 1, launch 1, but if not, launch 2, 3, and then after that, the constellation, and how that is going to continue to play a pivotal role within why we need Neutron as a launch vehicle in general. So that's kind of the hope with that. But my anticipation is it'll be kind of tough, right? The valuation of the company, if you look at it from a fiscal year 24 perspective, some people might say stretched. You're making about 440 million in revenue, and your company's valued at today $13.5, $14 billion. And so some people might say, wow, price to sales of north of 30, that's a lot. Comparatively to something like Palantir, not so crazy. But in the grand scheme of things, it's, when I've looked at the valuations for SpaceX, price to sales of 30 is generally pretty stretched. Now, keep in mind, I anticipate we'll cross over $600 million in revenue in fiscal year 25, if not closer to 650. And so in that respect, if you think about it in that lens, you're a little bit closer to 25 times earnings. Sorry, 25 times sales. Excuse me. Comparatively. So it makes things a little bit more digestible, maybe even less than 25 times sales. So it makes things a little bit more digestible and more in line with what I generally see with SpaceX's valuation. So it's tough to evaluate the company right now because there's going to be an underlying operating cost. And the thing that's tough is you have this big thing of revenue, this big wave of revenue that's going to hit the company. As one, you obviously have continued growth of Electron, the satellites business, but then two, you have this haste, and as well as the Neutron launch wave that's going to grow revenue as well. And so what we don't have a good idea of, and what I could potentially do a little bit more due diligence of over the coming month or so, is understanding what are the costs associated with Neutron, what are the costs of just normal SG&A at the company. And if you were to say, okay, it's business as usual, here's cost of goods sales from Electron, here's cost of goods sales from satellites, here's the removal of R&D spend for Neutron, etc. You need X to kind of break even, whether that's 500 million a year, 600 million a year in terms of run rate. And from what I've been told, or what I've been hearing from Adam, is even today, if you were to strip out Neutron, the company would, on a cash flow basis, remain neutral. Now, of course, there's depreciation of assets, there's stock-based compensation, etc., that hits your net income. So net income right now would still probably be, even if you stripped out the costs associated with Neutron, the net income still might be negative. But in terms of actual EBITDA break even, so like cash in, cash out, without Neutron, I'm very confident that it would be profitable. You're hearing margins climb north of 30% on a gross margin basis for things like the satellite launches, the satellite component parts, the Solero shipments, the Electron launches. So you're starting to get to a point where for every dollar in revenue, 30% of that, or 30 cents of every dollar, is going to gross profit. And then from that gross profit, all you have to pay for then is overhead, right? So the hope is we get to a place where, your cash flow break even, and that's really the next step. So even to me, if you stumble in the fourth quarter, I think there's a lot of catalysts to be had in 2025, or at least in the next 18 months. And I keep saying 18 months, right? And I want people to kind of hear me. I'm not just pushing, every 6 months, I'm not just pushing another 6 months or anything like that. I think people were trying to understand, you know, when we were here 6 months ago, when I was talking about 18 to 24 months, 18 to 24 months, it was really whether or not that Rocket Lab had the execution ability to get to where they are today, 55 to 60 launches, on the precipice of launching a Neutron rocket, continuing a haste in the manner that it has. And here we are 6 months later, and I think everybody can kind of see now that it's not necessarily about if Rocket Lab will become profitable and self-sustaining, but when. And so the conversation has changed, and I think that that's been reflective in the stock price over the last 3 to 6 months, obviously, as we've gone from below single digits, sorry, not below single digit, below $10 a share to now north of $25 and even peaking at $32 at some points. So in that respect, I think people recognize that, hey, there's 500 million on the balance sheet. They're shrinking the amount of cash burn that they have on a quarterly basis. This large wave of capital expenditure that they've had associated with R&D on Neutron is coming to an end. And once that ends, you're really focusing on getting yourself to a break even and actually starting to generate cash to the balance sheet, being able to pay off some of that debt. And, you know, I'm not saying that the company's going to be net debt negative, you know, having a bunch of cash on the balance sheet, like it's like a Palantir or anything like that. But what would be nice is to be able to get to a place where you can quantify, hey, we got a couple $100 million of net income coming in per annum. We could leverage ourselves and actually start to take some of this capital on to build 100 satellite constellations or fund our own constellations and have that avenue to get a little bit more ballsy. Not so ballsy where you kind of take some crooked bets and they go off sideways, but ballsy in terms of being able to be a little bit less capital discipline. And I like the capital discipline of the company, but that capital discipline has to be used for something. And I think that that will allow you to do stuff like the constellation and in other avenues that we have yet to kind of see. Now, what I don't want to do is lose that capital efficiency and the capital discipline, right? Just because you're doing something crazy doesn't mean you have to throw all your money at it. You take a calculated bet. How much money are you willing to spend? When do you come in for check-ins to understand whether this is good money after bad? It's like the Neutron conversation, right? You're going to spend $200 to $300 million, but that's a calculated decision, right? At the end of the day, I'm sure they said, maybe it's not going to work. What is that going to mean for us as a company? Will we be able to get ourselves out of that? And obviously, I think if they notice that they might not be able to recover from that, I'm sure Peter and Adam would have been like, let's not do it, right? I think that they're that prudent and that knowledgeable. I don't think they're going to let their egos get in their way to be like, I don't care if it bankrupts the company, go and do it, right? They're better men than me. I would probably be in that boat. But I think that they took a very calculated risk with respect to Neutron. They thought long and hard about it. They saw where things were headed. And with that, they're going to be able to launch 99 to 99.5% of all payload capacities that need to go into space. With the remainder 0.5%, you know, why even cover it, right? Why spend potentially hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars to be able to launch that extra half percentage point of market share? Now, could be that Rocket Lab gets sponsored by NASA or somebody else to eventually do something like that. But I think with Neutron being able to meet the needs of 99.5% or 99% of payloads going into space, what else could you need? And it's exciting times, and I'm really excited to share a lot of this with you guys. It's been a lot of fun covering the company. So let's just go through. Sorry, I just went on a big tangent there. Any thoughts on oil stocks? Any recommendations? You just LNG only? I'm really waiting for oil to have another leg down. You know, I don't want to speak too much of it because I feel like if I speak too much of it, I know too many friends, family, not so much family, but friends that are in the industry, and it sounds kind of poor. It's in bad taste to kind of talk about it, but there's going to be a lot of layoffs, man. You're already starting to see a lot of companies take that path to balance the books. Do I necessarily agree with it? No, but to be very honest, the balance of the books at $70 a barrel is not too rough, you know. So it doesn't make sense to be buying here, in my opinion, you know, for oil specifically. So if you could find a specifically natural gas focused company that's beaten down, Henry Hub specifically has been beaten down pretty aggressively over the past few years. It's having that recovery throughout 25. It'll continue to have that recovery, I think, for the latter half of the decade as you meet spot prices kind of at the $15, $16 range in Japan and Europe. As that kind of normalizes, it becomes more of like a oil commodity market, more liquid, no pun intended there. I think that there's a lot of room for natural gas companies to do well in this future. And I think that that's partly the reason why you haven't seen this huge downturn in a lot of these oil and gas companies, is because they used to not get much money for all the gas that they sold. Now they're getting a little bit at least. And so I think that's helped out some of the reserves positions. It's helped out some of the pricing and economics of some of these areas that previously may have had to pay to get rid of gas. Now they're actually potentially making some money on the gas that they have to sell. Because a lot of places now they can't flare it due to environmental reasons, which is understandable, right? There's that, but I just think, you really only buy oil companies when nobody wants to buy oil companies. And right now everyone's talking about buying oil companies, right? I mean, the time you don't want to buy it is when everyone's just like, why would you buy that company? You're an idiot. All oil is going to zero, and everyone's getting bankrupt. And it's worked out well for me twice, right? I invested heavily in 2014, 2015 into oil companies. I did well. BHP was one of my better ones. BHP is they used to be in oil and gas. Now they're specifically back only into minerals, but that was one of my better investments until rather recently. Was probably one of my best investments of all time until recently. Palantir and Rocket Lab obviously showing up to kind of take that crown. But I think it takes time. But I like LNG here. I think next decade is an opportunity. I think Venture Global is an opportunity. Venture Global could have another leg down, but I think once you get to the later half of the year, both projects are currently commissioning or online, and with that, you're going to start to see revenues and run rates that really bring down some of the financial metrics that people might be hitting Venture Global on. I reached out to their IR team. I hope I can have the opportunity to speak to them, and that's all I'll say for now with respect to that. I might have missed some questions, so if I from like 6:13 Central Time onward, if I missed it, please be sure to put it in the chat. How are we feeling about SMCI? It's feeling good, man. Feeling good. I've thought about taking profit. I'm up a couple 100% on some of my options, and didn't expect it to turn out this way. I mean, I expected a little bit, but it's kind of really strange. I feel like it's a little bit in the twilight zone because I haven't really fully gotten the answer yet, but the return has been absolutely phenomenal. So curious to see what ends up happening. My call options are at the $34 strike. So it's been kind of surreal, and I bought them, when some of the prices were getting pretty deflated on some of the premiums, and so one of my contracts might actually be up close to 1,000%. Unfortunately, I didn't put a lot of money into it. That was one that I kind of, I don't want to say bitched out on, but the leaps are even doing well for that one as well. Let's see. Yeah, let's squeeze in some haste missions. I like that. Let's see. Take care of your mom. Hopefully she's okay. Matt Money for Doge president. I don't know if I have the capital efficiency of an Elon or somebody like that, but let's just see. If you want to join Rocket Lab, you got to know a lot of shit. Don't bother calling. You heard it here first. What's a good source for reading about Rocket Lab? I don't want to say what's the best source, but if you look at my Twitter post, pinned post, I run through the company, and it's pretty much everything you need to know about what parts of the business they do. Is it the best course? Is it the most in-depth course about it? No, but it at least gives you an inkling as to what everything Rocket Lab is doing, because Rocket Lab makes it seem like they're just launching stuff into space. The video today, this makes it seem like they're launching things into space and that's it. There's so many other components to the business that will continue to grow as well. So I recommend that. It was probably done 6 months ago, but like I said, it's on my pinned Twitter post. So Hopefully that helps. Yeah, when the Heavens went on sale is a good one as well to kind of show that Rocket Lab is go. You know, they're go. There's no show aspect of it. There's no showmanship. They're not trying to come up with great media campaigns to make themselves look better than they are. They're just Rocket Lab. They just get it done. Yeah, Peter does a good job at the interviews as well. So, Adam talking tomorrow? He might be. I'm curious to see. Let's check the website if there's anything. Let's see, investors. Let's go to the website. Latest presentation, quarterly results. Latest events. There's this Payload Space Rocket Lab report. Rocket Lab delivers a third in-orbit manufacturing spacecraft from Varda. So nothing there. News, maybe?